Hello, it's Ryan here. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of Digital North. Digital North is a podcast series brought to you by Curious Magnet. You can head over to curiousmagnet.com to hear all of our Digital North episodes, as well as Learner's Permit episodes. My goal with Curious Magnet is to create a platform that attracts what matters in the realms of the arts, medicine, science, and athletics. So follow Curious Magnet on Twitter to find lectures, articles, short videos, and demonstrations from some of the most informative content producers in their fields. You can also find Curious Magnet on Facebook, and of course, head over to curiousmagnet.com for a full library of content. Let's get into today's episode. All right. Welcome to Digital... Oh, no, I'm going to start that over.
Yeah, ditch that.
Put
I
that
was
as
about
the
to do the
intro.
countdown.
Please put that as the... No.
No, just playing. Hello, and welcome to Digital North. We have been on a bit of a hiatus, but we are back. I'm Ryan Hamilton. Joined with me today are David Nielsen and Jonathan Tompkins,
What up?
and we're here to talk about Laila's Wisdom. It is the second studio album from rapper Rapsody. It's the first album since she signed with Rock Nation, which is Jay-Z's label, and it is a pretty big departure from the music that we have reviewed before, so I'm really excited to get into it. I'm the one who chose the album this week, so I guess I will start us out here. I chose this because we have been listening to a lot of indie rock lately, and most of the performers have been men, so I thought we'd switch it up, get some soulful rap in here with a female MC, and see what we thought about her album. This album feels very soulful to me. It's very grounded, and it feels very personal in a lot of ways. What do you guys think about this album in broad strokes?
Jonathan, why don't you go first?
Why, thank you, David. I was just so impressed in so many different areas with this album. The backing tracks, a lot of them have this very rooted soul sound to them, but they also manage to whip up some very funky new feels, and the flows are pretty dirty, like some really good stuff in there that just makes you kind of double take a little bit. Good stuff.
Yeah, I double took more than once. Sounds like you.
I did as
Triple
well.
took almost.
Yeah, I thought about it. I'm not as devoted listeners, or probably listener, or no one knows. I'm not a big fan of rap. I don't listen to it all that much. When I do, I look for things that traditionally are not like what you identify with rap. I'm not looking at the rhymes and the flow, like Jonathan said, and stuff like that. I'm kind of looking for the same sort of things that I see in other music. And to me, this did not have that in a lot of ways. I found that the rap tended to be pretty monotone, if you could say that, or tritone.
Double tone.
Double tone. I tried, but
I think it was stereo.
it was okay.
Something tells me it was.
I think we're diving into
Yeah, so
Trinity.
David, I see what you're talking about, sort of, and I'm going to talk about something else now. As someone who doesn't listen to much rap, maybe you could benefit from me BSing about what I see as kind of the rap metagame.
I'd like to hear that.
So earlier on in the late 80s and early 90s, you had MCs, which is a rapper, flowing to the rhythm and really trying to be part of the rhythm and trying to be as almost harmonic with it as you could find. And you could find this from some really great West Coast rappers like the Far Side, who are like sing rapping in the mid 90s, which is super cool. And now I think that rap kind of has one foot in R&B and soul, and one foot in kind of an industrial and mechanical sound, as we saw from Big Fish Theory. And so you also have this additional, I don't know, lane of rap where MCs are flowing in a way that's really discordant with the rhythm, and it sounds a little bit less musical, but the words stand out a lot more. And it always makes me think of, like, Kendrick Lamar does this quite a bit, and it's kind of like the Bob Dylan thing where your voice just doesn't blend in with the music at all, but because of that, the lyrics stand out even more.
Do you think, is that what happened in
we
this?
also have, the emergence of mumble rap, which is almost using lyrics as kind of a form of instrumentalization. Like, a lot of mumble rap uses onomatopoeia, like skra and bra and things like that, where they're not actually saying words, but the onomatopoeia is almost like a different instrument in the sound. So I think that this album is really more deeply rooted in the soul and R&B side of rap.
Sweet, man. I heard it.
Yeah, you definitely did. And I think it's pretty important to note that this is Rapsody's second feature-length album. And in this album, she, in a quote from Hip Hop DX, talked about how she really attempted to challenge herself. And so she took some, like, singing lessons, and she tried to improve some facets of her voice. And David, as you said, she's kind of monotone. And I think that's a very valid point. She seems to have a relatively limited vocal range. And you see some of that weakness in a couple of her albums, like, or in a couple of her songs, rather. On "You Should Know," when she sings, "If you can fuck with ya," her fuck was just so.
There's a lot of stuff like that.
I mean, I wasn't really criticizing her range or what. It's just it was more than one time during tracks where I was like, I've heard the same tempo, the same notes for the last 5 measures, and it's hard to differentiate what she's saying now from what she's saying then, because it sounds the same.
Very, very level, very even. This is not like, which is funny. I just came to mind, like, this is not going to be like Outkast, where it's going to have that melding that happens between rapping and between singing and between spoken and sound, all together. Not very often, even though she mentions in here, and a bunch of the times, Outkast, specifically Big Boy. But I mean, she does mention Big Boy, who does not sing anything in Outkast that I'm aware of. I'm not a aficionado, but it's usually Andre 3000 that's doing all the singing stuff for them too. So maybe that's a little bit more where she's coming from.
Yeah, and you see the ways that she kind of shores up those shortcomings, which is really nice. I think she makes up for her limited vocal range by having guests which come in and really complement the sound in the ranges that she's not able to sing in. And for example, Anderson .Paak had some supporting vocals in the first part of Nobody, and he really filled in that song and made it sound a lot more rich. So she does that throughout the album, which is probably the best way to shore up those shortcomings until she can become better.
Yeah, well, I don't necessarily think that like I said, I don't know that it's the singing portion of the rapping that I really took issue with, because obviously when you're listening to rap, you're not expecting singing. It's just that it could be broken up in a different way, and she could use those artists, and she did use some in some really good ways, but to break that up and put more highs and lows kind of in the tracks and make it more like an up and down type thing rather than this track is a bunch of rapping, and then we're gonna cap it off with a guest rapper.
Mm-hmm. Okay, man.
Yeah, and you see
Okay.
that with the guests that she has. If we can move on and talk about some of the guests, I think that she was
Mhm.
a little bit upstaged by them. She had Kendrick Lamar on. And
Yeah.
I think Kendrick Lamar definitely upstaged her as a vocal performer. She had GQ on, and he was a more proficient rapper. She had Black Thought on, and he's also, I mean, he's one of the best. And she had Anderson .Paak on twice, and his voice sounds a lot more refreshing and nice than hers. So I think there are several times in this album that you can definitely see that deficit, David, where you have other people who are performing in a way that she can't right now. And I think that Rhapsody is really, she shines as a lyricist more than she does as a vocal performer.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that is absolutely my summary. If we were talking specifically about a holistic approach to the actual performance in the album, that is definitely the strength here. I mean, that's what impressed me. That's why I would go back and I would listen to this album again. It's to get every little piece and every little puzzle that she put together, or that the guest artist put together, and kind of unwrap that and try to hear what they're saying. I would not go back to listen to the purity of her voice or just the power of her tone or something like that. Not that she had an unpleasant voice, but that's what this album is. I mean, if we're gonna talk about a rap album, that's the DNA, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, that's typically what I look for in rap music anyway. I like to think of it as, poetry with a beat most of the time. So anything beyond that for me is just kind of a bonus.
Yeah.
What did you think about that poetry portion?
I thought it was good. So we can break it down in a couple of different ways. I think that she has a very clear so backing up, she says in an interview that she gave with Hip Hop DX on February 17th, 2016, she said that she really idolizes people like Queen Latifah and MC Lyte and Lauryn Hill. And you can see a lot of that shining through, especially with Lauryn Hill, where Rhapsody is mostly rapping about relationships and about self-acceptance. And what you see in this album is almost just a complete lacking of a material fetish and like a lack of grandiosity. It's all about her and her feelings and kind of a broader strokes picture of her community more than it is about
Yeah.
what she's making and what she's buying. And so I really like what her focus is on in this album.
Yes, definitely. This part of the reason why I, just like David was saying, I don't listen to a lot of rap. A lot of it I just don't have any, I can't relate to what's going on. Rapping about how much rapping you do, or rapping about all of the money you make
Money,
from
women,
rapping,
drugs,
or all the stuff
and
that
rock and
you
roll.
do so that you can keep rapping. It's like I'm not a rapper, so I don't really care.
Right.
What's the communication here? What am I experiencing, feeling that I wouldn't be able to unless I heard these words? You can watch any episode of like a number of TV shows and see a representation based on all the pop culture surrounding rap, what it all that stuff is, because it literally, you listen to a lot of these albums that come out, and I actually do, because I get a little digest from Apple Music, and it's all the same stuff, and it's sad, and this was so fresh, with that. And also, the rapper, Rhapsody,
Mm-hmm.
she's from North Carolina, probably like an hour from where I'm from in North Carolina.
Oh yeah.
Didn't know you were
Nice.
from Carol.
Yeah, she's from, let me look this up. It was Snow Hill, which is about
That
an
seems like
hour.
a terrible name for a place.
I know, Snow Hill. That's kind of weird. She's even more south than I am.
Maybe it's all about the coke. I
So
don't
we
know.
have a connection. Also, I want to point out that she is currently 35,
All right.
which is, I don't know. I feel like
Pretty
that's
old.
really,
Exactly what I expected.
yeah. I
What
feel
did you
like
expect? Older, younger?
I thought that was a little bit older than just, I don't know, what I had in my mind for someone that's rapping. It seemed like she was newer on the scene, and looking her up, she is newer, right? She's second album. I think
Mhm.
first thing, what
Mhm.
was like 2-3 years ago, and then she had a mixtape or something that came out in 2016.
I think she's
That
been
was like
putting out stuff since like 2012, because I think
really
2012 was her
okay.
first studio album, and it was through an independent label.
Okay. Well, so yeah, that
And I
was late
mean,
20s. That was late 20s. It wasn't
nowadays, a lot of it's really hard to get on the scene so much
Mhm.
because nobody's record companies aren't looking really for breakouts anymore.
Mm.
It's
Mhm.
all like you got experience, you've been in this town for how long, and I'm sure
Franchising,
yeah, I'm
just like
sure she's been
television.
around for quite a while,
And
but it's
Uh,
nobody
a
wants
pretty
to go for
good
anything but a certain hit.
that's a good note, David. It is about who you know, and you see that Rhapsody knows some of the most important people in the industry. So a lot of her popularity right now is accredited to the verse that she had on "To Pimp a Butterfly," which is a Kendrick Lamar album that came out in 2015. She was
Mhm.
she was featured in one of his songs, and after that, she got signed to Jay-Z's label. She is pretty close with Kendrick Lamar. She's close with Anderson .Paak. This album with the 2 features that Anderson .Paak on it means that he's had 3 overall features for her in 2 albums, which is quite a bit. And you see her pictured with Dr. Dre. So she is very quickly become embedded in the elite of rap. And so she definitely knows the right people at this point.
What do
And
you
they
think that
all
is
really
that she's
support her.
so popular? Do you think that? I mean,
A lot of people are. There seems to be a little bit of a resurgence in like healthy, soulful rap, and I think that Kendrick Lamar helped pave the way for that in recent years, and I think that a lot of the industry is kind of clinging on to that, and that actually
Yeah.
brings me to a little snippet of Laila's Wisdom, the first song. She said, "You gonna be the difference between McDonald's, Burger King, and Whole Foods." Which really reminds me of a lecture which Brother Ali gave a number of years ago. I tried to find it, but I couldn't find it again. But basically, he breaks down rap into this metaphor of like a balanced diet. And he talks about how a lot of people are having rap fast food or rap candy. Like just kind of empty, simple, not really satisfying, but easy
not relying on
to
the lyrics or
produce
the
music.
talent,
And
but the
Lila's talking about this idea that she is the Whole Foods. She is this healthy main course, which gives you the mental and
Soul
psychological
sustenance.
nutrients that you should have.
Mm.
And so I really like that she specifically references, the fact that she wants to be the Whole Foods, and that's the same metaphor that Brother Ali used in his talk, which is really cool. I recommend you guys hunting it down if you could try to find it. But I think that she's found a lane as someone who is putting out music which resonates with an older audience and which resonates with people like Jonathan, who just can't really seem to relate to what rappers are saying.
Yeah.
I like that you picked out Jonathan in that.
No one wants to talk about you, David. We'd rather forget about you, leave you behind.
I'll just be here.
On
Yeah,
the topic of Kendrick Lamar, I think it's really important for me to touch on how much of the influence I think that he's had on this album. And you see this in a couple of ways in the way that she emulates his style. She has some segmented songs which are broken up very clearly into different parts, which is a very Kendrick Lamarkian thing to do. You see that in her song Chrome and her song Nobody. And you also see a similar style of like really intense song intros with laid back vocals afterwards. So like the beginning of the song is like a wave washing over you, and then you kind of settle into it. You also see that she can be pretty discordant on a couple of her tracks,
Yes.
which I think is something that Kendrick is really well known for, and also kind of the jazz fusion that she does. Like, I'm pretty sure the saxophone line on her track "A Roller Coaster Called Love" is
That was
the
my
same
favorite.
saxophone line that I had heard on "To Pimp a Butterfly."
Oh, really?
If not, it just sounds so incredibly familiar that I can't help but reference
Listeners,
"To
check
Pimp a
it
Butterfly"
out.
when I hear it.
That was my favorite track, by the way, because I think it had more. I don't know if this is a word. Dynamicism.
Okay,
Dynamics. The adjective that means
unpack
dynamic.
that.
Because it had. It wasn't just because a lot of the tracks start out. There's a nice riff. There's something like that, and then you jump into the lyrics and the rapping that is pretty uniform for a good while, and it doesn't seem that it really changes throughout the track much. But there is, like you were saying, there's a lot of soul and stuff like that in a lot of these tracks. And in the roller coaster one, it did a lot better, and it really, rather than it being seemed like an afterthought in a lot of tracks, it was more of a main theme. I don't know if you agree.
That's all right.
That's all right.
That's all right.
Yeah, no, I agree with you that I enjoy that song a lot. I liked the chorus up and down with the saxophone playing. That was nice. I think the song for me, which was the biggest deviation from the soulful sound, was "You Used to Love Me," because it was so distorted and had such a like robotic sound to it compared to the rest of the album. So if we're talking about deviations in sound, I think that's one that really sticks out to me.
And I think that was something that I found lacking, is the deviation in sound. Not that, because obviously you're going for a certain sort of emotion and style, but there's some play in that. And if you keep having a bunch of tracks that are the same, I just have the same beats to them, and I don't mean like beat like story beats.
Cats.
Yeah, I don't mean like 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean like this, then that, then that. If you keep doing the this
Okay.
and that, then that over and over and over, it just kind of drains the energy of a first time listener, at least like me.
I see. Talking about kind of a not useful blending of tracks where they seem to lose their weight for you because they
They
had
seem like the same track, like reimagined in a different way, but not all that.
Yeah, and in a way, that's kind of what happened here. And as I understand it, what always happens, there's a track that gets made, and then the rap gets placed literally on top of it. And I think she did, and the guest artists and the producers, because this was a freaking rainbow of producers and guest artists. There was a ton of people on this album.
Yeah.
That she did a bit more with that than she needed to, in order to get away with an album that had an album feel, but also a per song kind of feel on it. And in tracks like "You Used to Love Me," it's almost like hitting pause and here's something completely different, takes on a life of the guest artist, and some kind of weird stuff in there.
But also, to give her some credit on that, like you said, a lot of, especially rap, like it's got a track and then there's rap placed on top of it. I don't think that's how she went about it. It sounded the opposite, where she had what she wanted to do.
Oh, she had her writing and
then she placed what she wanted around
got the track afterwards. I think that there's a blending that happens between the two in a bajillion places. Unfortunately, I didn't spend enough time with the album to know all of the places where that happens. But there will be something where the music directly follows in with what's being said, and it definitely does happen. I don't know. I'd be curious to find out how exactly each track was produced, if it was all written out and then the music was written later, or if it was done like Mozart, where the music was written and they put the words over it later.
If I remember, Mozart didn't have any words in his music.
In his operas. I should have been more specific. In
Okay.
Mozart's operas, the music was written first.
I don't know if you guys are curious,
that would be a cool.
But Laila is Rapsody's maternal grandmother. So this entire album and the song Layla's Wisdom are a way of kind of paying homage to her grandmother, who I think is still living. But if you look at Genius.com, Rapsody is actually posting a lot of like clarifications on her lyrics. And she posted and said that my grandma always used to say, "Give me flowers while I'm still living." Like, you know, just show me the love that you have for me while I'm still here instead of waiting until I'm dead. And it's really nice to think that this entire album might actually be a direct message to her grandmother, or like shows
handing the flowers over. If you look at the album cover, right? What is that? It's a big wreath of flowers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's what
and
that
it's
is.
the kind of big wreath of flowers that you might see at a memorial. It's
ooh, damn, David.
And kind of like a
damn, Daniel.
Child that doesn't look too happy in front of it. Not angry.
David, always making everything about dying and death. Misery.
We know that Jonathan's afraid of dying.
That is literally the name of this Discord chat. Is John is afraid. It was John is afraid of death from our last episode, and now it's John is afraid of Laila.
Yeah.
It is.
So I like the idea that a lot of the soulful groundedness is, you know, what Rapsody is into, but also is something that she thinks that her grandma could get down to. And so in the first song, Layla's Wisdom, it contains part of the piano line from Aretha Franklin's Young, Gifted, and Black.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
That's juicy.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Wait, Aretha Franklin had a track called Young, Gifted, and Black?
Indeed.
That sounds pretty sweet, man.
Yeah.
Listeners, please familiarize yourself
with
with this.
Urethra Franklin.
Urethra Franklin. Come on, guys.
I don't think we
one
should
of the greats.
her in that
Come
on. She's still alive. Well, she's still alive, so we can say whatever we want. But when she unfortunately passes,
still, holy shit!
I'll give her some flowers.
Dang, just circle back. That's damn.
Speaking of flowers and Aretha Franklin, did you guys have some favorite little lyrics or favorite songs here that you wanted to touch on?
Jonathan, I'll give you a minute to think about it because
please, I gotta go back through my memories.
My answer is I Had Trouble. I mean, in any specific moment, like for a few measures or stances, whatever you call them, I could keep track, but then it all of a sudden felt like it took a turn. I don't know if it's that I'm just not acquainted enough with, I'm not good enough at listening to rap to actually draw the line between different verses, but it just felt so monotone, and it was like I'd listen to something and then boom, I'd forget it because I felt like I was in the same place and I just didn't see a line between. My answer is,
it also does not help that you heard this album once just a couple of hours ago. So
not a couple of hours
preparation is a little bit lacking, sir.
Years ago.
But also, okay, and in your defense, yes, that is true. In my defense, I don't listen to. I mean, if you go to the lyrics pages goodness gracious, each one of these is like the Declaration of Independence. There's so much to look at, and there are a lot of lines. I mean, go ahead and pick out 5 lines and try to draw a line between them. Growing up, I shopped at Kmart and Ross's, celebrated every win, learned everything from my losses. I never signed paperwork without reading the clauses. My parents worked too hard to get no credit for it. I'm tripped like Gray Allen. Y'all never made me valid. I learned from my Felicia Rashad and Debbie Allen. I don't know who Felicia Rashad and Debbie Allen are. I don't know who Grayson Allen is, and I don't understand that.
Some of the references are directly to people in her life, so she actually does reference later on, like
aside from the
friends and
references
family who aren't famous.
Kmart and Ross's. I know what Ross's is.
You know what Kmart is too, I hope.
Kmart?
I don't know.
Oh, that's that place where they don't have any employees and they sell GBA games. But
man.
there are I think she expects either too much from me, or I am just not capable of. Like, I don't have the intellect to understand.
That sounds about
what
right.
she's saying.
Actually,
it's one of the two,
No.
and both are very likely.
A lot of this stuff is really personal, and it's being communicated to us in a personal way. It's gonna happen that a lot of what's said is not something we could grab on, or I speaking for myself, can grab onto. But there is a lot of stuff that I can grab onto, and that's what I was hearing, and that's what draws me in for that next listen, that next kind of unpacking. I wouldn't feel bad about not being able to connect to every word, or even most of the words. You know, if you're meeting the artist halfway and you're bringing your attention to what they're saying, I think if you do that with this album, then you will find something. Hopefully in every track, but in several places.
Absolutely.
It'll help.
I mean, I think that a big reason that I don't, I suppose, identify or apparently listen to it the right way, is that I approach a lot of music looking at the musicality of it, and I might think, okay, I've heard this, this set of chords, I've heard these beats, and in this way, I mean actual beats, not story beats. And then I kind of draw lines between it.
You're like Apple and gold. Apple tells the world what color gold is every 3 years. Like, this is new gold, this is old gold, this is you and beats. You just change
like
the definition of the word beats,
musical beats.
halfway through.
When it's important, right? Because beats, the people who, if there are any listeners out here who would dig into stories and lyrics and things like that, know what I mean by beats, which is not the beats.
All right, let's not get sidetracked. Just finish.
Okay, yeah.
Say it, man.
So what I was saying is the way that I usually approach music is through the different chords and notes and stuff like that, and then I find the lyrics after that, and the beats.
Not the story.
And then okay. You were the one who said let's not get sidetracked, and I'm not the one sidetracked. And so I go for the music part of it, and I know lyrics are part of the music, but the notes and stuff like that are more a part of it, and that's what I identify with most. So that's how I approach stuff, and then I find the lyrics after that. And when the lyrics come at me so fast, and I don't have enough to differentiate this verse from the last verse, it's hard for me to access it.
You got to train your flow brain, man. Train the flow brain.
Train the flow brain.
Train it.
Yeah, David, I see what you're saying, and some of the references are pretty deep cuts, but a lot of them are pretty surface level. Like when she raps about Pac and Biggie, I hope that you know what that means, and she references Forrest
like
Gump.
your pocket, and you got a lot of big stuff in your pocket.
Exactly.
Yep.
Like you got cash you just got paid.
One reference which I thought was pretty funny on Power, she says, "Respect on my name. Why y'all so emotional?" And I don't know if you guys saw the Birdman interview that I sent you a couple hours ago.
Yes.
But that is
I did not.
referencing Birdman's infamous interview with the whatever rap
Breakfast
station
Club,
that
right?
is.
Yeah.
I forget what
Wait,
it's
is
called.
The Breakfast Club.
Birdman a
Breakfast Club.
rapper? Or is it the 2014 film?
No, this is not about the film. This is about the rapper, right? He's a rapper.
Birdman.
Yeah. Who came to his own interview with the Breakfast Club radio show
And he brought like 15 of his goons with him.
Yeah. And sat down and was like, stop disrespecting my name. I need you to respect my name. Respect my name.
Respect on my name.
And
so, that was a great reference. I
that's
like
good
that
reference.
She
I'm
just
glad.
casually threw that into Power.
She threw in so much stuff.
Yeah.
I'll tell you guys my favorite little mini flow right here that just made me LOL. I was like, ha, as I do, if you know me. I do that watching shows, listening to music. I do LOL. So this is one that really got me. I'm known to black out. Y'all resemble the Oscars because the Oscars are a bunch of white faces. Flow so much I need lifeguards. Not like Rikers, them some whole new bars. Influenced by many, but I'm a whole new star. Yeah, there's levels to this, but I'm a whole new floor. They talking keys to success. I'm a whole new door. Still slipping through traffic, screaming that the allure I'm breaking the law was too much to ever ignore. I've been exceeding the limit since I had an accord.
Okay,
that is so
that
good.
That is obviously... Yeah. See, that's a kind of... Your criticisms, Ryan, are valid. Obviously, now that I hear that, which is from the album I just listened to, read to me, I acknowledge that's sick flow.
That is good. And it's a lot of it goes between reference that we'd all get, right? Like the Oscars.
But they're like
what the Oscars
like 4 references in 4 lines. Like Rikers, you gotta know Rikers.
Yeah, every single.
You gotta know that they're talking.
And when she says, "I've been exceeding the limit since I had an Accord," that's personal. That's her first car was an Accord. You know, like that's just regular life. You know. And it's about her too. She speeds. You know, she's a speeder.
She's
She's dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah, she's really dangerous. She doesn't obey traffic laws.
One thing that really struck me, on top of, the witty lyricism, was kind of the overall feeling of the album. And it was one of the few rap albums that I have heard recently that doesn't include like explosive anger. And maybe it's because I've been listening to a lot of Kendrick Lamar, but her album is really about, like, it seems like she's just kind of in the eye of the storm with all of these big famous rap personalities around her, and she kind of wants to bridge it all together. And so that's
the metaphor right there.
Yeah. And if we go to Nobody, go back to that song, she says, before politics, arguing real versus radio hits, it's all hip-hop. You can't divide what ain't different. Don't like all underground music. I don't hate all music that isn't. I was just making a clap to Waka Flocka last Christmas. And I just think it's so nice to think about this album as being a way of using Layla's wisdom, of using her grandma's advice and her outlook on life to kind of be a bridge in the rap world. Instead of trying to make her own alcove where she like defends her one area, she really seems like she is inviting people in.
It's inviting, you know. I've been speeding since I had an Accord. You know, let me tell you a story right here. You know, like Layla's.
But that Ryan, that lyric that you just read, that's wonderful. I was clapping to Waka Flocka last Christmas. That it just hits your.
David needs another listen.
She was. She was making a clap.
She was making a clap to Waka Flocka last Christmas.
Listening.
She was not clapping her hands. She was clapping her butt cheeks, David. I don't know.
But like, how does that stand out? How is that supposed to stand out when just about everything sounds very,
Yeah,
very
I mean,
similar.
I see your criticism. When I listen to this album and rap in general, I don't necessarily hang on every word. I mean, I do on songs I really like, especially when I go back and listen to them and re-listen to them and re-listen to them again. But a lot of what
But
I'm
you
pulling
listen
from
for
this
flow
is
first.
by
Yeah.
after listening to the album like 4 to 5 times, I then sat down and actually looked at the lyrics.
Yeah,
But
I
it
listened
wasn't
to the
until
album
then.
looking at the lyrics um both times
Okay.
that I listened to it for notes, man.
Okay.
That was good
So
shit.
David, you gotta maybe it's important
Hey
for
man, I
you.
had lunch with my grandma. So back up.
Oh, what's your
That's
grandma's name?
important. Yeah. Speaking of family, I wanted to touch on something that has not been touched,
Hmm.
and besides David's penis in the past 3 years. Got him.
I'm
I
glad
wanted
you
to say
saved that because it sounded really rapey before that.
that's what we do.
Talking
No.
about family, I'm gonna touch something that hasn't been touched.
um, when Ryan was talking about how Layla's wisdom isn't just about something specific. Let's say Layla gave, Layla gave her some advice about, I don't know, guys, right? That advice about guys, that's life advice. That's not actually just talking about guys, right? So these connections that we have with our family, these connections we have with our friends, our ex-boyfriends, all this stuff that she talks about in here, this is all used. This is all connection that can be used to relay a message in art, in our work, in our new relationships that we form. That's what this encompassing this kind of friendly, inviting rap album doesn't have to be just a statement of self in a rap album. It could be in anything in life. And she's, in a way, she's railing against a lot of this divisive stuff coming out. That's like Ryan's talking about. It's nice to hear an album that is not straight anger from people. Shouldn't the point of making art, of rapping, shouldn't this be joy? Aren't we producing something so that we can all have a community that we can all enjoy and share and improve and change and show other people? This is why this album made sense to me, because it was about sharing. It wasn't about closing off. It wasn't about like, I'm up here, the rest of the world fucking sucks, kill everybody because I already am winning.
Yeah.
That was good. And there's a really cool weekly or daily newsletter called The Creative Independent. If you guys, listeners, wanted to check it out, it's interviews with artists, be they visual artists or musical artists or sometimes dancers and stuff, all about whatever. It could be, hey, what's your favorite kind of tea or something like that. It's about how life imitates art and how artists should be able to have like a holistic view and share things with people. And it's kind of a way to ground yourself if you're feeling weird or shitty or you're not quite sure where to go. It's amazing to hear other people that are just trying to do something. Like, how are they doing it? This really reminded me of the conversations that are had with the creative independent, with the artists. I think that would be a really cool place to go to check out a little bit more sharing of self on a less artful basis, a little bit,
What's
in
the
the
name of that
form of
newsletter
a
again?
interview. It's called The Creative Independent, and you can
All right.
Google that and you'll know you're in the right place because it'll be signed Real Snail. That's their mascot, the Real Snail.
Dave or Jonathan, I really like what you said about this feeling like a more kind of, I don't want to say sensitive, but an album which is all about life advice and all about like a more long-term outlook on community.
Yeah.
In the song "Sassy," I really liked a couple of lines where she said, "I grew up with you and you grew up with me. Threw a few hands and we good next week. Fellas want a buck. It ain't hot enough for heat. Homie, I know your whole family. And just that idea that like you can settle disputes between people without having to, turn to guns. And after you do that, it's fine because it's such a small place that everyone knows everyone. And there's no reason to be so destructive in those communities. It's now when I'm reflecting on the fact that she's 35, it makes a lot of sense that she has such a kind of developed sense of community
Mm-hmm.
in a way that younger
Did
people
you
don't
think she was
necessarily have.
younger?
I was feeling like mid-late 20s, but 35, I mean, you're mid-30s, right? That means that she's approaching middle age, and you don't associate I don't associate rappers with at least current
This is
rappers that I haven't heard of and been around forever, like Jay-Z.
Slug
Can I
from
tell you why I
Atmosphere turned
expected
40.
that she would be?
But it makes a lot of sense because she talks a lot about feeling lonely in relationships and like the cycle of relationships. And when you get into your 30s, especially as a woman, it's science has shown men and women in their 30s, that's the life stage where you start feeling lonely if you're not like
The reason
jacked up.
I expected her to be later than 20s is because it's difficult to make your way and get a well-produced album. Obviously, it's well-produced, well-written, things like that. They're not going to give it to 22-year-old guy, much less a 22-year-old woman.
Well, unless it was in the producer's best interest, in which
Yeah.
case they do that all the time, and they come
But I
out
mean,
with
how
one
many people
album.
are they looking at, right? There
Yeah.
are thousands of rappers across the country. Tens of thousands, at least. And so
Billions of rappers.
billions, over 9,000.
100 million rappers.
So
going.
I did expect her to be an experienced person who probably didn't just have the opportunity because nobody gave her the
Fair
opportunity.
enough.
So in my mind, I expected her to not be a 25-year-old, whatever.
Yeah, I guess I just didn't consider age.
I
that
didn't
wasn't
either,
something that
but
came to mind.
in the back of my mind, that's what I would have.
I really liked the song "Knock on My Door." Going back to relationship advice and life advice and feeling lonely in your 30s, I just thought that was such a cute song. I find myself playing that song pretty often. It's just I like the giddiness and kind of like the innocence of trying to attract someone, and the way that even her flirtations are pretty wholesome and like earnest. So that's a song that makes me smile. I just think it's pretty cute.
You've
Yeah,
used
for
the
sure.
word cute
And
several times.
Twice.
I think that song is a great example of how the song sounds like what the lyrics say.
Yeah.
Definitely. Like Knock on My Door. Do you hear that beat? It's bum, ga, ga, ga. It's not on accident. There's a lot of great text painting that happens in this album. That's a really good example of that.
Are you listening to it right now, or do you
No,
just remember
I'm just
the
that
beat
good,
from-
David.
Goodness, you real flow with the Mew. The Mew is what we call music in the industry.
Wow, is that what you call it in the industry?
In the industry,
Did this album make you guys think of anything else? What were some references or allusions that you either noticed in the album or that it made you think of?
I already talked about one, which is the artist interviews that I've read on the Creative Independent and the stuff that people talk about. Their friends or the friends that they wish they had, or mistakes that people made that they talk about not making again. I mean, that really reminded me of these artist interviews because that's the lens that I saw this through. And there's like a bajillion other things that come up second to second while listening. But really, it just reminded me of all the artists that I know. Maybe me trying to do stuff
What about you, David?
Shout out Jonathan Tompkins, musician. If you need him to play at a temple,
Yeah,
ready?
churches, weddings,
Churches too. Huh?
funerals. I do the whole thing. I'm linear integration, vertical integrations.
I can't say that it really reminded. Well, it reminded me of you, Ryan, because of my inability to
sucked.
consume rap and your sincere attempts to get me to consume what is ostensibly good art. Because I do see a lot of things in it that I just like because I like it, and a lot of things that are similar to other forms of music that I like. So it reminded me a bit of that, but I guess not enough to make me play it.
All right. What criticisms did you guys have? If you could improve this album, what would you do?
Let's skip me because
All of
I
it.
think I've said that
Just
once
wipe
or
it out.
twice.
Nice.
Don, what about you?
There were a few tracks. Knock on My Door is actually one of them. I do like the sound mimicking what's being said in it. However, some of the backing tracks were uninteresting compared to the other ones. I mean, some were so just sexy and full and had this, like the sax backing at the end that was like, tasty and just so much good gospel. And even if it wasn't bluesy sounding, but they had many parts that fit together really well. That didn't happen on a few of the tracks. Knock on My Door being one of them. I would be talking out of my butt if I tried to name specific other tracks and why I wasn't super into them. But the general gist, that was the general gist. A few of the tracks felt like they were produced by people who didn't have as well of a grip on the sensuality of what this album was really delivering. And then there, some stuff. I mean, at this point, I'd be changing lyrics, which is stupid. But I suppose some of the songs, the N word is used many, many, many times. And
I mean, within a minute of the first track, I believe.
Yeah, and I just, I don't know, man. It just doesn't feel like it belongs in some of these, but it's in there anyway. It feels like it feels almost like it's pandering, like the number of times it's in there, because she's so like she's not angry about this stuff, and a lot of times it comes across as kind of like a angry kind of thing, and that's just my perception, one perception, but it didn't feel natural in there for her in some of the tracks. To very small little things that I was
From what I noticed, wasn't it mostly guest lyricists?
In general?
Yeah.
Who were using that word? Nah, man, she said it a bajillion times.
Does she bajillion?
And I mean, it's her album. She can say whatever the hell she wants, but it's a lot of them seem to me. I'm like, really, man? Is that what?
I mean,
I have a
also
different sensitivity to that.
Yeah, we are. I mean, obviously, we are ostensibly from a different culture, and
well, not that different. We're all Americans. Me and her were born an hour away from each other.
Well, you're a gosh darn white person.
Yeah, no, we have different parentage, apparently, from what she says, which is great. It's the melting pot. That was if coming up with things that kind of struck me as weird, that those were the things, the backing tracks, and then a little bit of over sprinkling of the N word. Yeah.
Okay. I personally didn't like part 2 of Nobody, and well, I guess I'm split on that. I think that, as you said, some of the backing tracks were either kind of lacking or really
agreed with you.
really
Part
like
2
grating.
of Nobody. Yeah.
Yeah, Part 2 of Nobody, like I really enjoy the lyrics because it's all about, it's like this satirical rendition of how people behave online and how important social media is to people and how people really need to feel like they have to share everything and they don't really have any good face-to-face contact anymore. So I enjoy the content of the song, but that bell ringing and that was
Yeah, it was
fine because I think it was supposed to
Yeah.
be a little bit grating. I think it was supposed to really kind of annoy you. I think that's kind of what tunes you into the fact that she's being satirical. But it was a bit much. And same with Jesus
Right.
Coming. The last song. It's really hard for me to get into it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That one, I also have a little bit of a problem with the songwriting. I think it was a pretty bad storytelling compared to the rest of her songs here.
It was very blatant,
Very basic. It was something
and out
that,
there,
like, an
and the
elementary
music.
student would write.
Yeah. There is a highly debated argument always going on throughout time. Is art supposed to be beautiful, or is it not supposed to be beautiful, or is it something in between?
Or does anybody even give a gosh darn?
Yeah, I'm one of these somewhere in between people, but that's definitely on the side of like art doesn't need to be beautiful because it's a pretty ugly song. I mean, what happens is ugly. The music is not soulful and beautiful like the rest of the album in the same way. I agree with you there.
And it does also wrap up with death. And so if we look at the beginning of the album with Layla's wisdom, she does talk about what she's destined to do and like how people like, you know, knew she was going to make it and what that means to her and kind of like her beginning. And it kind of makes sense that Jesus Coming really ends with just time to go and, you know, we're dying. So maybe that was on purpose to kind of close the circle a little bit.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think? What are your overall thoughts on it? And let's get some ratings.
Ooh.
Call us out. Who's first? Who's last?
I'll go last.
Okay. Well, who's first?
You'll go first.
Well, who's
Okay. I did say who's first, who's last, and he said last. Not gonna lie, well, like I said before, I don't listen to too much rap. The stuff that I do listen to, sometimes I do enjoy it.
I don't always drink rap.
You could read what you want from that. I enjoyed a lot of jazz elements. I enjoyed a lot of the rhythms in it. There was far too much, for my taste, sort of monotone or what I described as tritone, just kind of hitting up, down, up, down, up, down. For many measures, and it was hard to listen to the lyrics when it was doing that for what seemed like half an eternity in my mind. I'm sure that the lyrics, I mean, from what I'm reading now online and from what you guys have cited to me and I've read myself, there's definitely a lot of really good stuff that she put in. I'm not going to discount that, but the way that it's presented is difficult for me to hear, and it's difficult for me to jam to because it's just the same thing for a while.
It's personal rating. That's fine.
Which is why I haven't prefaced it too much, going ahead and shitting on it.
You haven't prefaced it very much?
You know me. I preface C. And I...
David, what's your freaking rating?
Yeah, God. What is this
I'm
maze that you're making us walk through?
Well, I don't want you to hate me because
Give me the cheese, David.
I don't.
Give me the cheese.
I'm gonna say 6 out of 20 in trims.
6 out of 20 what?
In trims.
What does that mean? Oh, rims.
It's a lyric that apparently,
in trims?
In trims?
On
a car, so
Oh,
Okay.
Car has a
okay.
That's enough,
diameter.
David.
I
That's-
gotcha.
No, we got
Okay.
it. We got it. We
Wheels.
got
I
it.
dig that.
We got it.
Okay.
So would this be a buy, a listen, or a skip recommendation?
I would say tell your friends you like it and then listen to music that you do like.
Ooh, so this is a listen so that you know enough to say at the dinner table?
No,
All right.
not even that.
This is a skip from
Just
David. All
listen
right.
to what I say.
Now
Take my criticisms to heart and
I will
blow by.
save the viewers valuable time and tell them that from head to toe, very solid. Lots of good things to listen to. Listen to it a couple of times. There'll be things that you'll grip right away, and they're going to bring you back in listening again to pick out everything else that goes on in here. If you are someone that listens to rap avidly, you know about this album already, and you probably already have it. If you don't, totally buy it. If you're not a person that listens to rap that much, but you're open to it and having it in your library, definitely have a listen to it. You may even want to buy it. I'd say don't skip this one. You know, it's 1 hour. If you have streaming services, listen to this album. All right, it's going to be a good one to check out, especially if you're not already someone that's really into listening to rap music. So I'm going to give it 8.5 out of 9.5 speeding accords.
Nice. Very nice.
Do you want to expand to that fraction so you don't?
Yeah, so when I listen to the individual songs on this album, I find that I don't like them nearly as much as I like the album as a whole, which reminds me very much of The Moon and Antarctica, which is
Hey, clap,
another
clap, clap,
album that we
modest
talked
mouse.
about before.
But
So I really think
was
that
not
this
on that
project
one.
shines as a cohesive unit, and I really like how it feels as a whole. I think it is filling a void that rap currently has, both as a good female MC, as a wholesomeness, as an earnestness, as a feeling of people wanting to connect with the community as a whole instead of fracturing. So because of that, I would definitely recommend people buying this album. It's something which I think maybe isn't a landmark album for the genre, but I think it is really picking up where artists like Lauryn Hill have left things, since Lauryn Hill doesn't really make music anymore. So because of that, I give it 4 Jamaican Kung Fu Kinnies out of 5.
Ooh, an 80%. Very nice. I like that.
Yeah.
hey, no, it's 4 or 5. We're not going 8 of
So,
it. We don't change percent.
David, you probably don't even know who Kung Fu Kenny is, do you?
You little
I
white
hear he
bitch.
does kung fu.
I'm in Jamaica, like Wagwan. My feet is out, my hair is long, and patois coming from my mouth. Me, I go out
Yeah.
north,
Doesn't
it's
sound
time
like
to
a
be
person.
Yeah.
Syrian. Rude boy, me, I ain't worry about fearless.
I'm pretty sure my parents warned me against meeting such a person.
All right. Well, thank you guys for reviewing this album with me. Next week, Jonathan is doing a movie, so keep a lookout for something juicy from him. This has been Digital North, and thank you so much for listening. Good night. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Digital North. You can follow us at curiousmagnet.com. You can also find us on Twitter and Facebook at Curious Magnet. And before I leave you, I have a little bonus snippet from today's episode. My voice is just a little
Time
bit...
to go.
Time to go.
Time to go.
Time to go.